and welcome to another episode of the CattleUSA Daily Podcast. Hey y'all, it has been a minute. Last week I was gone and in DC all week with a Kansas Ag leadership group that I am a member of. And if you were here like a couple weeks ago when I did my last like Friday episode or Thursday episode, whatever it was, I shared with you guys that I had every intention of, while I was in DC, doing some in-person podcasts while I was there, just kind of like keeping y'all updated on what was going on, what we were learning, all of the things like that. And we're all imperfect people. Let's just say that I looked at the schedule and I was like, oh yeah, this is totally possible. Like we're going to be so on it. I'm going to have so much time. And then you get there and you're like, oh, so we don't get back from dinner until like 9, 10 every night. And then there were some days like during the middle of the day that we had some like short, like hour breaks and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, I'll just throw my microphone in my purse and I'll record podcasts like on the go. Bring Cattle USA on the road, right? Well, that didn't happen. Those breaks, there were like 2 of them that in the middle of DC, for some reason, I had no service and was unable to record. AKA also one of those was the market report we were supposed to do with Dan last week. And him and I had a great phone call of me frozen on the screen with 1 bar of 5G in the middle of DC. So that was definitely interesting. I don't understand quite how that happens, that in rural Kansas, I can get better service than I can in DC. But, you know, it is what it is. But I had an amazing time this last week, just doing all of the things that we did in DC. And then we even went to Gettysburg. So we were in DC for the first 4 days, and then we were in Gettysburg for the last 3 days. And we did a leadership immersive experience in Gettysburg, and the whole week was just absolutely amazing. I'm so excited to be home and excited to be back with you guys, actually able to discuss some of the things that I learned and that went on while we were in DC, just give you guys some more encouragement about having conversations with your congressmen and women as constituents, and just kind of what all of that looks like, some updates on things that I learned just outside of that, more in kind of policy updates, things like that. And I had every intention of showing up and kind of last week giving you guys updates on things like trade and tariffs and the farm bill and all of that sort of stuff. But I do want to say I didn't necessarily learn anything new while I was in DC about those things. So if you're not familiar, there's a lot of things going on with both of those topics. Like they're pretty hot topics in ag right now, right? But the thing with that is I didn't necessarily learn anything super new to be able to bring you guys any updates or stuff like that. I will kind of lightly discuss those a little bit today. Just some reasons why we're kind of stuck in certain areas, different things like that. But so last week I was in DC, and that entire week it was just jam-packed with a lot of things. Those first 4 days we were in DC, right? And we as a group had the opportunity to meet with our congressmen and women, both on the Senate and the House side. So for me, I'm in the big one in Kansas. So we had a really great meeting with Tracy Mann. And then we also had a really awesome meeting just as a whole group with Senator Roger Marshall and his team and stuff like that. Just kind of learning where their individual priorities are right now, kind of what they're seeing on the landscape of agriculture. And then we do have a really nice diverse group within our group. So we have people that are directly involved in agriculture. We have people that are just ag adjacent as well. So maybe they are rural community developers. Maybe they're on like economic development staff or stuff like that, that they're not directly involved in agriculture, but they are still contributing to rural America and agriculture as a whole. And it was really encouraging to sit and talk with our congressmen and women from the state of Kansas specifically, and just really reinstill the fact that like they care about rural America, and talking about how the concept of how farmers and ranchers, they are the backbone of rural America. We don't have rural America if we don't have farmers and ranchers. They are the economic drivers of these small towns and things like that. And so it was really awesome to be able to sit down with them, discuss those things, and have some really candid conversations. Typically when you go and you talk to your congressmen and women, whether you're representing yourself or a different lobbying organization or something like that, you typically go with an ask, right? So you're going to go there, you're going to share your story, share what you're about, all of the things like that, right? Well, and then at the end of it, you're going to be like, and this is what I want you to do, or this is what I'm hoping to get out of this conversation or something like that. But with our organization, we didn't really have any declared asks because we all come from a very diverse background. We were a very large group. We were representing our leadership group and just kind of rural Kansas as a whole. So it was nice to actually have a little bit of a change there and sit down and be able to have some really candid conversations about just what we're seeing in our rural communities and some things that are concerning to us. Not necessarily saying like, hey, we need you to fix this, but hey, this is what we're seeing as your constituents and stuff like that. And a lot of those themes were on the trade and tariffs that we're currently seeing, the farm bill, and then a lot about labor. As Kansans, we know all too well how important labor is, and Kansas has so much more potential than we already do to be a real economic driver for worldwide and national agriculture. We already are one of the top state producers of ag products, but we have a lot more opportunity to be able to continue to expand that. So labor was a big thing that we talked about. And that is, I would say, an area that my mind has been a little bit opened up to while we were there, because it's like, we need people to do these jobs. We need people to be in packing plants, work in the feed yards, do all of these really important jobs in agriculture. And we're having such a hard time with it right now, right? If any of you work with like H2 labor, it is extremely, extremely difficult. And there's not really a great process to citizenship after that as well. When we have a lot of these really amazing families who are contributing to rural America, we want people to come to rural America. We're an ever-growing, ever aging population. And so we, as rural developers and people that really care about our rural economies, want more people to come in. We want people to be here, and just kind of discussing that with them and this current administration's views on that and things like that. And really sharing the fact that what was shared with us was that's extremely important, and we understand that and we recognize that, but there's also an order of events that we kind of have to do this in, and just sharing that. And no matter where your political beliefs are, I do kind of understand that. I do understand that there is a certain process, and there is unfortunately some bureaucracy with the way that that has to go and stuff like that. So my whole point of this was it was encouraging to sit down with those individuals that are representing the state of Kansas on a national level in DC, and they are so plugged in to us and our concerns as constituents. And we weren't the first ones to share those. We weren't the first ones to talk to them about it. I will put a plug in for their staffers. The staffers of all of the individuals there in DC are just absolutely amazing. I am friends with some staffers that are staffers of other people in other states, and they work their butts off. Sometimes it's actually even better to get a staffer for a meeting than it is to get the representative themselves, because I can go in and try to eloquently share my thoughts or opinions or stuff like that, but that staffer is going to know that person like the back of their hand, and they're going to be able to take that concern to them and really help it resonate and hit home. So sometimes it's even better to get a staffer and have that conversation with them and stuff. But another point of it is our congressmen and women that are representing us are so accessible. Like, it is so easy for us to be able to go to DC and have these meetings with them. And if you don't have a meeting directly with the representative, then you have one with one of their staffers. And like I said, sometimes that's even better. And it's so easy for you to just walk in. Even if you don't have an appointment, it's highly recommended that you set up one. But even if you don't have an appointment set up, you can walk into their offices and just talk with an LA or someone else that's in that staffing room and just share your concerns or thoughts, or have like a nice conversation with them and share some information and just stuff like that as constituents. And this also really reinstilled the mindset that I have that like our people that are representing us really care about our thoughts, opinions, all of the things. As constituents, they want to hear from us. They really, really do. They don't want to just be able to like come home and just hear from us at town hall meetings. They want us to email them. They want us to call them. They want us to obviously go to those town hall meetings too, but also just be those constituents that continue to push them and be like, hey, you're the one, I elected you. You're representing us. This is what we're seeing, and this is what we need you to know is happening right now back home. And so that was just super encouraging. encouraging. I really, really enjoyed having those conversations with them and just getting to know a little bit more about things that are going on Capitol Hill outside of maybe my personal knowledge, and as someone who's directly plugged in to all of those. It was just really awesome to be able to sit down with Tracy Mann and Marshall and all of the other people that we were able to just kind of have those discussions with and stuff. So that was kind of the congressional side of it, but then we were also able to have some really great meetings and tours and things like that of other businesses that are in DC. So we went to places like USDA, we went to NASDA, we went to EPA, we went to the Canadian Embassy, and let me tell you, the Canadian Embassy was actually probably my favorite place that we visited while we were in DC, other than like obviously being able to tour the Capitol and all of that stuff. Like that's always really cool to be able to do, right? But the Canadian Embassy, I've never been there. And that was actually a really, really cool experience. And it was interesting going into because of the trade and tariff thing that we're kind of dealing with right now between the United States and Canada, right? So we've got in 2 days, actually on the 2nd, some potential trade and tariffs that are going to be put into place with this current administration and stuff like that. So it's interesting to go as an agricultural group to the Canadian Embassy and talk to them about trade and tariffs and what those implications are, and what that kind of looks like, and also just like the agricultural relationship between Canada and the United States, and just learn more about that. We obviously, I personally know how intertwined and connected we are, but it really reinstilled the fact that like we are constantly moving ag products over the border and stuff like that. Like if you're in southern Canada, you're probably selling your cattle to go to a processing plant in the United States, and then we might take that meat and send it back up to another processing plant in Canada to get further processed or things like that. And it's just really, really cool to see the interconnected relationship, and the people that we met there were absolutely amazing to talk to just share about Canadian ag and just our relationship and stuff like that. And I was a little nervous going into that conversation, I'm not going to lie, because I saw on the schedule like, oh, we're going to the Canadian Embassy and we're talking trade and tariffs. This is a interesting time to decide to do that, especially as a group that we're not representing one party or another. We are we're a very diverse group. And so we went in with just we're representing rural American agriculture, and no sides of the aisle or things like that, and being able to have some really great conversations come from that. So that was a really, really fun one that we were able to do. We also had some meetings with some different ag liaisons and things like that, where we were able to talk about trade and tariffs, and then we were able to talk about the Farm Bill. So with trade and tariffs, obviously a big thing. I've discussed it multiple times on here. I am not an expert, unfortunately, but I did learn some really amazing things and make some really awesome connections that hopefully we're able to get some people on to talk about that, the impact on agriculture, what that's going to kind of look like. But the gist of it is you have to understand sometimes that trade and tariffs are being used as a tool right now. They're being used as a tool to be able to further the power that the United States has, really put us back as a world leader, and really reinstill the fact that a big thing with trade and tariffs was looking at emerging countries. Like, okay, so for example, we've been trying really hard on China for a really long time to get our ag products into there. And that's a really important customer base that we have, but maybe we need to look at other countries as well and kind of expand and look at those other opportunities and options, especially like looking at the EU. We struggle a lot sometimes to get our ag products into the EU with a lot of their regulations and things like that we have to abide by as American producers. And so looking at other markets where we can still send a really high quality, safe beef product to those emerging markets elsewhere that have a desire to have American beef, and maybe just focus our efforts elsewhere as well. So that was a really encouraging conversation to have just as we kind of do an outlook onto this year and what is trade going to look like on an international level. Unfortunately, I don't have an answer to that. And if anyone tells you that they have an answer, they are blowing steam up your butt, because no one knows right now, is the reality of it. No one really knows exactly what's going to happen. We unfortunately don't have a crystal ball that's going to be able to tell us that, but it's really great that we were able to continue to learn just more of the background and basis of, hey, this is the reason why. This is kind of like some of the thoughts behind administrative decisions that are being made right now and all of the things like that. The next thing we talked about was we talked a lot about the Farm Bill. Obviously, we're up for a Farm Bill this year. And so the gist of it is right now we are actually overdue for a Farm Bill. So last cycle, the previous Farm Bill got re-upped for 1 year to kind of like push just to still have something, but we didn't have a new one ready. We weren't able to agree on one from the House and Senate side and all of the things like that. And so I think it's important as agriculturalists as well to remember that the Farm Bill is only about, I might get this wrong, so don't fact check me on this, or do fact check me because it's important to know. I think it's like 15 or 19% of the Farm Bill is focused on like agriculture, like rural ranchers, farmers, rural development, agriculture type of stuff. And the other part of it is all food and nutrition. So that's SNAP, that's other federal food and like regulations and stuff like that. So that's why there's so much behind this Farm Bill and why it's still so controversial. There's a lot of debate going on about it. They're having to rewrite it a billion times and all of that stuff is because there's a lot of debate going on with the nutrition side. Obviously, there's things on the ag side that are still getting debated, but it's important to realize that like ag isn't all that's in the Farm Bill, right? So, I will say we had a variation of people come and talk to us about the Farm Bill. And we had everything from there is no way that this is getting passed this year in this cycle. And if it does, pigs are flying. We had some people that are like, no way it's going to happen. Like, it's not realistic. Then we had some people that were like, I'm optimistic. Like, I think it could potentially happen. Like, I think that there's a real possibility that we could get a Farm Bill passed. I'm kind of in the middle, if I'm going to be real. I think that looking at it from a realistic standpoint, we need to get taxes figured out. That was another thing that someone else shared about was we've got to get this taxes thing figured out that's currently going through Congress, and we've got to get our budget figured out and everything that's kind of going on with it. And because of that, no one's able to focus on the Farm Bill right now. So we've got a million other things going on with taxes and just budget stuff and all of that jazz. And so people are focusing on that so much that they're not able to focus on the Farm Bill. And so my thoughts with it personally are I'm cautiously optimistic, right? I need like Dan's little slider when we do market reports. I am cautiously optimistic that we could potentially get a Farm Bill this cycle. But I'm not holding my breath by any means, just because there's so much other stuff going on right now. Not saying that the Farm Bill is not important. It's extremely important to me. It absolutely is. But I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke up your butt and say that like it's going to get passed, because if I'm being real, I don't know if it's going to. I'm not holding my breath. Obviously, like there's still a strong possibility that it could, but I'm not going to sit here and hold my breath and think that it's going to happen overnight. There's a lot of things that go into this Farm Bill and what it's going to look like for ag in the next 5 years that come with that Farm Bill. Do I want the last one to just get re-upped? No, I really don't. I really don't. There are some major changes that we need to see on an agricultural standpoint that the last Farm Bill wasn't covering well enough. We really need to see some changes for our farmers and ranchers and all of the other stakeholders within ag. We need to see that change. We want a Farm Bill to go through, right? But we also don't want a rushed Farm Bill. I would almost rather them just re-up it for a year than just like slap something together and put a stamp on it and send it on its way. Just because of all of the different directions that people are being pulled right now, unfortunately, just makes it really, really hard to get things figured out, get things passed, and for our congressmen and women to actually like do their job. Right now, there's a lot of just divide across the aisle. There's a lot of he said, she said. There's a lot of pointing fingers on everything. And there's not a lot of actual congressional work getting done, in my opinion. And we saw it with budget things. We've almost had some shutdowns way too many times, and just all of the things like that. So I do want to end on like a good note with the fact that everything is interconnected on Capitol Hill, and it was really encouraging to see that too. So everyone from Like we talked to people from Farm Bureau, we talked to people from the EPA, the NASDA, USDA, all of those people. And it's really cool to see how all of these organizations are interconnected and really collaboratively working together and using each other's resources, really leaning on one another, especially at organizations like USDA, where because of an administration change, they are also going through a lot of staffing changes. So they're kind of low staffed right now. And it's really cool to see an organization go through like everything that they're doing right now with really low staff, but still be able to get so much done and lean on their other partners and stuff. So I do want to encourage all of you that, as constituents, speak up. Like, I want you to have a relationship with your local and state representatives and stuff like that. But also, just if you don't feel quite comfortable talking to those representatives or calling them or emailing them or all of that stuff right now, make a connection with your organizations like KLA. Go to your local FSA or USDA offices. Those are your first touch points. We have local offices like that for a reason. So whether it be local on a Kansas level, where you have organizations like Kansas Livestock Association that go and represent Kansas agriculture and Kansas livestock producers on a national level, whether you're going to forums and discussing with them on stuff for them to then go discuss, or whether you're calling up your representative or senator or writing them an email and sharing your thoughts and concerns and your story and all of that stuff. They're all great resources for you to use, and our people are really, really accessible. And I do also want to encourage you, sometimes I have some friends, like I said, that work on Capitol Hill, and sometimes they're actually better at answering their email than they are answering a text message from me. So they're really, really great as staffers about going through those emails and really focusing on getting our concerns to the people representing us and stuff like that. So I encourage you to, if you have something to share or you just want to have a touch point, to challenge yourself and go do that. That is one thing for me that I kind of challenged myself to do, was get more in touch and in that world of having that touch point with my congressmen and women, and specifically their local representatives. Like, for instance, Tracy Mann has an office here in Manhattan, and really getting back in touch with the people that I know. I actually have some friends that used to work for Mann, and so really just re-upping those connections and getting back into that world a little bit more to continue to be a representative of agriculture on a political level. And even if like you don't have a heart for representing ag on the political level, I do also want to encourage you that no matter where you're advocating for agriculture, whether it be on a national advocating level, kind of like I am hoping to do, or an advocating level like I'm doing right here with you right now, I want to encourage you that it is a muscle that you have to continue to flex. It really is. It's not going to be easy at first, but you really need to continue to flex that muscle, and that means continuing to get out of your comfort zone and work. So with that, I encourage you to, like I said, get in touch with just your local offices, and don't just let your concerns and your opinions or your thoughts be discussed around the dinner table. Take those dinner table discussions to the people that are representing us and to the people that can actually make that change, because that's the whole point of having the democracy that we do. Is we as constituents need to be more comfortable with speaking up and speaking out, and especially as agriculturalists who represent such a small portion of the population, we need to be vocal. And I'm not asking every one of you to get out and have a podcast and to just go do all of the things that I'm doing. I'm asking you to find what your thing is. I'm asking you to find what your thing is and advocate for agriculture where you can, whether that be on your rural community development levels, whether that be on school boards, or just with friends and family. Just advocate for agriculture and continue to represent this industry that we all love. Because even if every single one of you listening to this had a conversation with one person, that is massive for ag. Like, we have a really great audience here. And if all of you go and have this conversation, then it allows us to continue as agriculturalists to make that impact. And specifically for rural America and the Midwest and Kansas agriculture, whatever state you represent, and continue to just really grow a robust system of advocates within agriculture. So DC was absolutely amazing. I loved every minute of it. going to DC is just fun. It really is. It's an experience I hope that everyone, at least once in their lives, is able to go do. And just DC is a mosh pit of so much culture and everything else that it is a lot of fun to go to, whether you're going on to Capitol Hill and going with a specific ask or a reason, or whether you're just kind of going just to go and experience. It's a lot of fun, and I recommend it for everyone. So that's kind of DC. So that was our first 4 days. And then our last 3 days, we were in Gettysburg, and we did a Gettysburg leadership experience. So we are an ag leadership group. So it was really fun to take 3 days to go through this immersive leadership experience and just kind of what that looked like for our group and stuff. And I do want to don't tap out on me yet. Even if you don't consider yourself a leader, my definition of leadership looks a little bit different than some people's, but my definition is really on the lines of, if you are doing anything in life, I don't care if you're a mom, you're a dad, you are a rural leader, you own a business, you coach a kid's soccer team, whatever you do, you're a leader in some aspect of your life. I guarantee you every single person can find one instance where they are leading someone, whether it be a mentorship, leading an organization, a business, something. There is some way that you are a leader. There's a lot of situations where we are leaders and followers within our lives. And I think it's really important. The things that we learned are really impactful for rural agriculture specifically, and the impact that we want to continue to make on Kansas agriculture as leaders. And I hope that everyone is able to kind of look at their lives and be like, hey, I am a leader in some aspect, and so I can apply these things. So for me, the Gettysburg experience was like, I learned about Gettysburg and American history and all of that stuff when I was in school, right? Like we all do. It's part of our curriculum. We got to learn about it, right? But I now understand Gettysburg on a whole nother level, and being able to look at it from, yes, it was a battle that happened, but we're going to break it down into a leadership thing. And we're going to look at the decisions that the leaders made, both on the Union and the Confederate side, and how that impacted the outcome of the battle, the individuals that were fighting that battle, everything like that. And we're going to look at it we're going to look at it at a granular level, and we're going to bring that into our lives right now in 2025. And it was really, really cool to look at history, be like, how does this impact my life? Because I'm not a history nerd, y'all. Like history's cool. I have an appreciation for it, but I'm not a history buff by any means. And so it was really awesome for me personally to be able to look at something and be able to analyze it and be like, okay, this applies to my life in this way. And now I will forever actually understand the Battle of Gettysburg too. And being able to apply it to my life, I think helps me actually remember it as well, and all of the things that happened. So it was a 3-day experience. It was a 4-day, but kind of more like 3-day battle. And every day we went to Gettysburg, and we went through the battle and things that happened that day. But then we went back to the classroom and we're like, okay, so how does this relate to our lives? So the first day was anticipatory leadership. And so that was all about, how can we look at our lives right now and look towards the future and anticipate all of those pitfalls, all of those highs, all of those lows, things that are coming in the future? How can we look at those things and start making, what decisions do we need to make before that fog starts to roll in, right? So then day 2 was adaptive leadership. So when the fog rolls in, when stuff is happening, how are we being adaptive within that? Because we can plan, we can look out, do all of the things as much as we want. But here's the reality of it. Plans are going to change. And as a person who likes to have control over their life and have plans and all of the things, that was really great for me to go through, and how to be adaptive and quick on our feet and things like that, and make quick decisions and pivot when things don't go according to our plan. And then the third day was predictable surprises. So how can we go about our lives? Are we ignoring any red flags that we need to be looking at? And is that impacting our businesses? How can we really approach life and be like, okay, so I adapted, and now I should have predicted these surprises. How can I look at different areas of my life and kind of be proactive in that as well? And then that last day, we also did Pickett's Charge. So we did a walk through Pickett's Charge. So we started at the Confederate lines and walked the charge charge. And I will say that was one of the most impactful things we did throughout the entire weekend. The battlefield guides were absolutely amazing at their job and just making it really relatable and telling the stories of the individuals that were there. Most of the men that were fighting that battle kept really detailed diaries and notebooks of their accounts. And so we had a ton of really great firsthand accounts, and our guide actually had a stack of note cards where he had printed off these firsthand accounts from these diaries and from these notebooks that the soldiers themselves had accounted. And we walked, like we were able to read out loud in the certain areas of that charge and that specific battle what these soldiers were going through, and just their thought process, their trust in their leaders, their everything that happened. And the fact that, like, oh gosh, I cried during that, because we read one that was a father losing his son during that charge and the process of that, and leadership through those turbulent times and what that looked like. And especially for those soldiers as followers of leaders, what that looked like and how you can be a devoted follower and all of those things like that. So that was a really, really impactful experience. And I can't recommend it enough to anyone just going to Gettysburg and getting a tour guide to go through and do that battlefield tour. It was so, so, so impactful. And they are just truly things that I will take to my life forever. And I want to encourage all of you that, like, I spent the last 5 minutes or so talking about leadership, right? So in your lives, how can you look at this? How can you be an anticipatory leader? How can you be adaptive? How can you look for those predictable surprises within your own individual lives? How can you go through that and evaluate your life right now and being like, okay, how is my leadership style doing? What do I need to do to improve as a leader? Do I have devoted followers? Do I have a devoted company and people that work for me? And if I don't, what do I need to change? What does that need to look like? What adjustments or pivots do I need to make? Looking out onto this year and stuff like that. So I seriously, like, I think my biggest takeaway from this is the best leaders lead through uncertainty, not away from it. The best leaders lead through uncertainty, not away from it. And so how can you as leaders in your lives right now lead through that uncertainty, lead through those times that you're like, we don't know the outcome at the end of this? And I think that that really relates to agriculture right now. We don't know the outcome of trade right now. We don't necessarily know what that's going to look like for our grain markets. We don't know what that's going to look like and impact. We can anticipate how it's going to impact our cattle markets, grain markets, all of the things like that. But at the end of the day, we don't have a crystal ball. And so how can we look at this from a leadership standpoint in our rural communities and continue to lead through that uncertainty and continue to grow and impact agriculture through this downturn? Because I love the business quote of the best leaders and the best companies are the ones that are born and that grow through the really hard times and through the down. So how can we look at our rural communities and agriculture right now and lead through these uncertain times rather than cower away from them? Seriously, guys, like, this last week was so much fun. I'm sorry that I was not here with you guys, giving you guys those live updates and things like that from DC like we had originally discussed, but I'm excited to be back home in Kansas and back into my routine, back into just having fun, showing up this week with all of you guys. We've got some exciting things coming this week, some new discussions, all of the things like that. So I am just really excited to be home, be back in the routine, and be bringing you guys more info just on all of the things that I learned with a new rejuvenated spirit and just drive to continue to advocate for this amazing industry and beef industry that we are a part of. And I do have some exciting news as well. So I applied for the NCBA Trailblazers program this last year, and I can officially share that I got accepted as one of the 10 individuals that from around the country. Once a year, NCBA picks 10 trailblazers to be a part of a cohort. And I was one of the 10 that got selected during that extremely intense interview process and all of the things like that. So I am so excited that I get to now represent a national beef industry and do some really amazing media appearances, training, advocacy training, all of the things like that to continue to represent National Cattlemen's, but then also just the beef industry as a whole, and be able to bring you guys some more amazing content and just information, and for me to be able to grow as a host for you guys, right? Because we're all on this journey together. We're all kind of growing and developing together as we do this journey and as we go along just on this path together and stuff. So I'm extremely excited to be able to represent National Cattlemen's, and I will actually have the press release linked down below, so that if you guys are like, what is trailblazers? Like those 3 words that you just said make no sense to me and you want to check it out, I'll have that press release down below for you guys to check out as well. So that is super exciting. I'm glad that I finally get to be on here and share it with you. I've had to hold this in my back pocket for like 2 months now, and I have been itching to share it with all of you and share it with the world and stuff like that. So I'm extremely excited to continue to just develop the partnership with National Cattlemen's and be able to bring it back to all of you Kansas cattlemen, or just Midwest, or wherever you're listening from. I know we have a lot of listeners who aren't in Kansas, and I know I say Kansas a lot, so know when I say that, I just mean cattlemen in general, or representatives in general and stuff like that. But thank you guys for being here, and I am so excited to, holy cow, it's been 35 minutes. I meant to come on here, you guys, and talk for like 10 minutes, okay? It's just because I missed y'all so much that I just had way too much to say. Maybe I should have been recording these last week, right? So that I didn't come in on a Monday and record a 35-minute episode for you guys. So sorry about that, but I will stop talking now. That's kind of it for the life updates and things like that, but thank you guys, as always, for being such amazing and devoted listeners to the CattleUSA Daily Podcast. If you could, pretty please, go like, subscribe, rate, review, all of the things like that. We really appreciate it. And let me know any of your thoughts. If you have any questions or things you specifically want me to continue to expand on, throw those in the comments. I'm more than happy to either discuss those with you guys personally, or maybe do a full episode on them and stuff like that. So, as always, I hope you guys have a great start to your week. Happy Monday, and we will see you all tomorrow on another episode of the CattleUSA Daily Podcast. We'll see y'all.